G'day, Jeff Lewis here from Seriously Series, and welcome to another episode of Unique 4x4. Now, before we get into this episode, you're going to say it's only got two wheels. That's right, good on you. But here at Unique 4x4, it's not necessarily just about four-wheel drive vehicles, and I've talked about this in previous episodes. Whether it's two-wheel drive or whether it's a motorcycle, it doesn't matter. As long as the vehicle itself has got a unique history behind it, unique engineering, unique stories to be told, then it can appear on this show. And today what we're going to be looking at is probably one of the longest serving pieces of equipment in the Australian Army. This is none other than the number 5 trailer, or the half-ton military trailer. So join us as we have a look into this unique piece of kit, and I share with you some top tips in regards to buying one of these trailers, but more importantly, living with one too. Anyway, if this sounds like a video that might be of interest to you, you know what to do. Stay tuned.
These trailers were engineered under the guidance of the Army Design Establishment, or ADE. Limited production of these trailers occurred as these were used for tests and trials, with the main production commencing in 1966. These trailers were given the designation of AUST.NO.5 MC2. And many of these trailers are still in service to this day. Though the role of these trailers was to transport goods and cargo up to 500 kilos or half a ton. The trailers are towed by using a refined Pintle hook attachment, which saw its development and refinement of the mechanism under the development of the ADE. The suspension of the trailer uses two semi-elliptical leaf packs and Land Rover wheel studs, though the hubs themselves do not share the same Land Rover parallel bearings. Many of these trailers are coming to the end of their service life, though they are finding service elsewhere. The question beckons, why would you own a 50-year-old trailer? Well, if you're a Land Rover enthusiast or an off-road going adventurer, I think you know why.
As you can see, the trailer itself had a really interesting history, and one of the things I love about it is Australian made. Obviously, coming into service or being constructed back in 1966, things have changed a little bit over the last 50-60 years or so, but in essence, really not too much, and that's probably one of the reasons why these trailers have remained in service for such a long time. Now, in purchasing one of these trailers, the first thing you want to do is get it registered. That's right, if you buy it off the Australian Army, it isn't registered, so you have to go out and actually get it registered. Now, this makes it a little bit problematic for a lot of people out there. Now, the reason being is that this was built for a commercial vehicle, and here in Australia, registering a commercial vehicle is very different to registering a civilian vehicle. Now, one of the first things that you've probably noticed with this trailer that's rather odd is the mud guards here. Now, the mud guards have obviously been modified, and I'll tell you why. The rims that are on here look like your standard Land Rover rim, spot on, but they're not. No, it's Land Rover, so nothing's the same. What this is, or what these are, is actually rims for a Land Rover Parenti. So the actual offset of the rim is slightly different to that of the rim that these trailers originally would have come out in, or out with, back in 1966. So what does it mean? Well, it means that when you actually put the wheel on and you've got the standard mud guards, they actually stick out by about 10 millimeters or so. Doesn't sound like too much to worry about, does it? Well, that's why I've got this here, because I went to get it inspected and it failed because of that. The other problem is nowadays pretty much all of us use radial tyres. Radial tyres in themselves don't have a straight sidewall. They're actually curved ever so slightly. Go out and have a look at your four-wheel drive and you'll see what I mean. But if you get cross-ply tyres, it's virtually dead straight. So I found if I put an early Series 2 rim on with a cross-ply tyre, it would fit under just spot on. But obviously I didn't have two rims with cross-ply tyres and were an early Series 2 configuration with that offset. So one of the issues that a lot of people have with buying one of these trailers is then living with them. And a lot of people end up actually changing the suspension configuration, but I haven't done that here. What you need to do to get the most out of one of these trailers is actually completely strip it. And that's what I've done. I've pulled all the suspension system apart, I've pulled all the leaf packs apart, I've cleaned up every single leaf, I've repainted it. I know that sounds wrong, but that's how they came out at the factory. And then I've put them all back together. I've put graphite grease actually in between the leaves, or sorry, not graphite grease, just graphite. And then in the centre you've got a centre bolt, and that obviously holds, as the name suggests, the leaf pack together in the centre of the leaf pack. And basically what I've done is I've replaced those, because what ends up happening is they actually break or they can snap. And what the centre bolt does is it actually locates the leaf pack into the actual axle itself, and then you've got the U-bolts that then actually come up, hold the axle and actually clamp it on to the axle itself. So if that snaps, what happens is the axle can move backwards and forwards and can do a lot of damage to your U-bolts. You can actually snap them quite easily. The other thing to replace that I just mentioned, U-bolts too. Just go and replace all of them. Because a number of these trailers, like the Parenti itself, have been mothballed or sitting in yards on barracks and bases in Australia for a long time. So some of them have seen a lot of use, some of them really haven't seen much use at all, and I don't think this one's seen much at all due to the tail light configuration at the back, which I'll show you in a minute, because that's something else you need to consider. So by doing all that, you can still get the suspension bushes themselves. There's a manufacturer in Mackay who I believe probably originally built some of these trailers too, but they actually make the suspension bushes and you can actually buy them reasonably cheap. And once you've done that, it actually makes a big difference. The other thing too is tyre pressure. Now there's a fantastic website called Ramallah, and basically it's Registry of Military Land Rovers, and it's basically everything about military Land Rovers here in Australia. And obviously they've got a whole page on the number 5 trailer, and they talk about a few things you can do to obviously get a bit more out of them, and one of them is tyre pressure. Now the trailer themselves, I actually had this weighed the other day over a weighbridge. It came back at 350 kilos. I think that's probably wrong, because there was a lot of mud and grit on the weighbridge. I think you're probably looking at around about 250 to 300 kilos. Either way, it's pretty light for the size tyres that it's actually got on it. So if you pump these up to 40 psi, and that's what you run in your Land Rover, Land Cruiser, whatever, this thing is just going to skid and bounce around like nothing else behind your vehicle, and it's going to be an absolute dog to tow. The best thing you can do is let these down to about, they recommend 25. I run them at about 27 just to be different. And pretty much by doing that, along with obviously redoing the suspension system or the leaf packs, I get a really nice ride. I've driven on a highway to get out here, obviously away from Kalgoorlie in the bush, and I was doing 100 and there was a couple little rattles from it. Other than that, not a problem. Coming down the bush track here, I just took my time. That's what you do in a Land Rover, and not a problem at all. So I'll show you just a couple other things about the trailer itself, because there's a few really cool little hidden features. Rightio, so obviously this is very different to your conventional trailer, your 6x4 trailer, what we call them here in Australia. Obviously I think 4 foot wide, 6 foot in length. But basically it is really over-engineered to the max, as you can see. Now we've got a Pintle hook here, and this was obviously developed by ADE, the Australian, oh, I'll have to put that down below, it's evaded me. But anyway, it was developed supposedly here in Australia, I may be wrong, but anyway, it's been used on military Land Rovers really since time began. And it's fantastic. This is actually rated for up to 5 tonne. It's a standard Land Rover piece of kit, so you can actually buy it off Land Rover themselves, but it does cost you an arm and a leg if you are going to buy a brand new one, so be warned. But one of the things I love about military equipment, and I really do love military equipment, is, I guess it's a bit of OCD coming out in myself, but it's so well thought out and it's so well organised. One of the things I love is just the attention to detail, like this steel cable here that you've got for your pin that actually goes through your Pintle hook. You've got it here also for your pins that go for your chain, your safety chains, either side. I rented out trailers for years and years and years at a service station, and every time I'd go and borrow one, or someone else would, the shackle would be missing, the pin that goes in the shackle would be missing, or the trailer plug wouldn't work, and yada yada yada. But this is just a really well thought out system, and as I said, ridiculously over engineered. So anyway, what's this pole here? Well, it's quite interesting. This trailer doesn't actually use a jockey wheel. It's a bit odd, isn't it? Well, not really. I personally don't like jockey wheels. They're a pain. The wheel fails, the rubber around the wheel fails, the actual attachment to the trailer fails. They're just a real pain to use. What this has actually got is obviously this pole. We've then got a flat plate on the bottom here, and I'll show you in this footage here how it actually operates. But basically we've got a bolt which we undo, that goes down to the ground. I can then lift the trailer up a little bit, adjust that, then drive the Parenti away. So works really well. Bit difficult when you've got a load in it, I will admit, but other than that, top setup. The front of the trailer is really interesting too, and I'll show you here also. You've got 2 little drain plugs here and here. Now these have obviously been retrofitted to the trailer over time, but really good. Means when I've got this parked up, and if it's outside, I can actually lower the front of the trailer down. Any rain, any debris, anything that gets in the trailer itself, it can just come straight out the front through these little drain holes here. And as you know, if you know anything about trailers, that's been the demise of any good well-built trailer over the years. They either rust on the front if the trailer's been stored like that, or they rust on the back if they've been stored like that. So you can't win. But this is one way of getting around that problem. Obviously the trailer plug itself is very different on these trailers. It's a 24 pin 12 volt NATO plug, supposedly, or NATO specification. And obviously this fits perfectly in the Land Rover Parenti, so I haven't had to change anything at all. But if you're buying it to go onto your conventional vehicle, this can be a real issue. But don't worry. There's a company, and evades me once again what they're called, but basically they make optional equipment. And they actually make an adapter, so you can literally plug it into this and then plug it into your normal trailer plug. I think they're around about $75 Australian, I may be wrong, but buy that, plug it in, forget about it, off you go. That's pretty easy if you ask me. Obviously the plug itself comes out, and then you've got a little tin attachment here. Get your plug, and it simply holds there in place, which is fantastic, because one of the demise with any trailer is the plug hangs around on the ground, you tread on it, you drop the trailer on it, and it's all over. So really, really good. Anyway, we'll just have a quick look at the back of the trailer, because there's a few interesting things there, and we'll wrap it up from there. So one of the interesting things about this trailer is you can sort of see how it's evolved over time here. We've got two reflectors, and obviously it would have come out with those back in 1966. Indicators would have came out or been available to go on the trailer much later. We've got a brake light here. This would have probably been an original. And then we've got another one that's been added on over here. And this has all been done by the Australian Army. It hasn't been done by anyone else. Obviously here you've got a piece of steel behind it, and that's obviously to fit your number plate. Now one of the sad things about this trailer, I'll say, is here I actually haven't got the hitch. There's another hitch here, and you can put a pin straight through it. So you can actually tow another number 5 trailer, so you can actually have a train of them. But anyway, I'm not too phased about that. You can't do that legally on the road, so anyway, see what comes up in the future, you never know. Obviously we've got these two little slits here and here, and I believe one of these would have housed the unit insignia and probably the unit number in the other one, but I could be wrong, and I do stand to be corrected. Obviously you've got a support here too, so the trailer itself, when you take it off the vehicle, can't topple all the way over. It just hits the skid here, which is really, really handy. There's one more party trick that this trailer has, and I'll just show you inside, and you'll be blown away by this. Now one of the interesting things is obviously you've got the wheel arch over there, but you've got a gap between the wheel arch and the back of the trailer. Now what fits in there perfectly is a jerry can. Using your imagination, you can obviously then fit a number of wooden boards across here, and then stack your jerry cans basically from here right over to the other side, and you can do the same up the front. How many jerry cans you can fit in, I'm not too sure. I've got to test that out, but it's certainly one of the reasons why I bought this trailer, and I'll talk a little bit about that now. So I guess the golden question is, why would you bother buying one of these trailers? As I said, they're over 50 years old. They've got leaf springs in the back. They bounce around, they rattle, they're noisy, they're rusty. Well, from the vehicle that you've seen, you can obviously see why I bought one. It matches the kit. It matches the actual setup, I guess you could say. But when I bought this trailer, I was doing a lot of remote work out in the desert, and I needed to be able to carry more supplies with me. I was going out for 1 month at a time, and putting everything in the Parenti was getting a little bit too much, and I didn't like the idea of maybe overloading the Parenti slightly, which I may have done once or twice. The other thing that I wanted to do is have that ability to be able to carry a large amount of jerry cans, because out here it's very difficult to get water, and it's big stops in between, you know, service stations or places where you can actually get half decent fuel. So that's one of the reasons why I bought this trailer. These trailers are really quite affordable. I saw them going for auction in Darwin for $300 Australian. But now I've seen that some people are starting to pay stupid money for them, up close to $2,000, $5,000 Australian. I paid $1,000 for this, and I thought that was pretty good at the time, and that was a couple of years ago. But they are a fantastic piece of kit. As I said before, I really do like military pieces of kit. They're just well designed, well thought out, and it's pretty cool for a trailer that's 50 years old. You can still pretty much get all the parts for it. And I guess, sort of summing up, off-road going trailers really aren't cheap, and being able to get into that market for, you know, depending on which one you buy, for a pretty affordable price is pretty good. And I've seen some people do some wonderful stuff with these trailers, actually convert them into off-road campers and a heck of a lot of stuff, and they're using them for what they were built for, and that's actually getting out there and exploring Australia, and hopefully we might see a few of these actually exploring the world in years to come. Anyway, I know I've probably prattled on a little bit, but I just get really passionate about these pieces of kit, and it's one of the reasons why I love doing this series of Unique 4x4. Now, as I said earlier in the video, if you think that you've got a vehicle that fits the criteria that we're looking for here at Seriously Series, then you can get in touch with us. You can get in touch with us via Instagram, Facebook, and also via email. By visiting our YouTube channel and clicking on the About button, you'll see an email there. And you can obviously click on that and get in touch with myself or Damon, and we'll try and figure out a time that suits you best so we can cover your vehicle and all the rest. But anyway, if you are enjoying the content here at Seriously Series, then please do consider supporting us via Patreon. And look, if Patreon isn't your cup of tea, that's fine. You can do a one-time donation on our website, which basically takes you through to PayPal. And if you're new to the channel and you're just figuring out what we're about, what we do and all the rest, then click on that subscribe button down below, click on that notification button too, and that way you won't miss out on one single video. Anyway, I'll catch you later on.